What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Please follow my Instagram at RussoLifts, just in case something happens to this YouTube channel. You can follow, message, and you can watch my daily story content on Instagram. I'll see you there. Oh, hey, no. What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Today, I'm going to be doing a gynecomastia video. So I have gynecomastia, and I wanted to go into, my plan as far as getting rid of my gyno. Certain things that you need to take into consideration as far as like the long-term health side effects of using AIs to get rid of your gyno. I'm going to jump right to the point. So if you haven't been following, the fitness clout news lately, I don't blame you. But I did want to highlight, a certain IG profile, which would be Joe Aesthetics. So Joe Aesthetics is, with Young LA, he's around like some of my friends in the clout world. I don't personally know him. Exceptionally crazy shredded physique. And, the reason people follow him is because he's so shredded all the time. He's the guy who did the alien gains where his potassium levels are off and he can flex each individual fiber. But, I really wanted to get into what recently happened because he recently tore his triceps. So he did a full video with Vigorous Steve discussing how he tore his tricep. But to summarize, and I highly suggest every single person watching this video subscribes to Vigorous Steve. But just to summarize it right, he did not tear his tricep lifting. He rather tore it just flexing his tricep. And the reasoning behind the tear, according to Vigorous Steve, and in my opinion, I agree with Vigorous Steve's opinion, is, his abuse of AIs. So I've already made a video touching on this. In the past as far as, one of the biggest side effects in drugs and bodybuilding that I see people abusing is AIs due to the irrational fear of getting gyno. Guys will constantly have in AIs and they'll constantly use them. I talked about in that video, and I'm going to link that video above, that really there's a shit ton of side effects with AIs. You're progressing heart disease rapidly with AIs, and it's where a lot of the side effects come from. And when you're utilizing exogenous androgens, you have to take into consideration that your HDL, your good cholesterol, is automatically going to take a big hit. You could have a 60 HDL before starting any exogenous androgens, and just like that, in my opinion, it's going to be hard to get above 40 with TRT, with HRT. Doesn't matter how safely you do it, right? HDL skew is just one of those things that there's been no mitigating factor that does a substantial amount to get your HDL back in the amazing range. So by adding in AIs on top, right, you're ruining your HDL even further. So you could put your HDL in single digits pretty easily with the abuse of AIs. You could put your cholesterol really in the skew of progression of heart disease, which you could, it's all going to be synergistic as far as progressing heart disease, because when you're injecting testosterone, you're essentially ejecting cholesterol, right? So you're skyrocketing your LDL, and then the AIs to prevent the gyno, to prevent the estrogen conversion, is bringing your HDL down even further. But taking it back to Joe Aesthetics, who, blue check mark, millions of followers on IG, super IG famous, multiple sponsorships, I'm sure big money sponsorships, tons of pressure on him to be shredded 24/7, because that's how he created that brand, is with his insane shredded physique, as well as never have gyno, right? Because if he got even the slightest bit of gyno, he's going to get, a couple hundred comments not pointing out the hard work he did or the hard dieting he does to maintain his physique, but pointing the finger at his gyno because they want to tear him down, with whatever way they can tear him down. They're going to try and tear him down with that gyno. So I can see psychologically, and you can see in the Vigorous Steve interview, and this is no diss towards Joe Aesthetics at all. I think Joe Aesthetics is a very entertaining guy, and that he's a super chill, down-to-earth person. But you can see that, the reason his tricep tore is because he did not want to get gyno. He's maintaining this crazy shredded physique. Obviously, you want to crash estrogen to hold the least amount of water, as well as he said he was getting a little bit of gyno forming, so he was constantly adding in Arimidex, a Zemestane, to nuke that. Well, what Vigorous Steve explains in the video is that super important for your tendons and joints. So for those who don't know, like when your estrogen is low, your joints start cracking like crazy. You don't want to lift heavy, right? The reason why a power lifter will build a wet compound cycle is for the cushioning of the joints, right? You want a lot more estrogen when building strength, and you want a lot more estrogen when building muscle in general, because estrogen is extremely important for building muscle. So the way Joe Aesthetics had his cycle lined up, right, he's just maintaining the muscle. He probably wasn't going to put on any more muscle because he doesn't have any estrogen going on whatsoever, because he wants to maintain that shredded alien freak look. But basically what Vigorous Steve pointed out in a more scientific way is that it's, it halted collagen synthesis of his tendons and his ligaments and everything. And that's why his tricep tore, because it was starved of collagen synthesis. So in reality, he had a horrible injury, all because he didn't want to get gynecomastia. This is rewinding it to my theory. My view and my stance was that when I was younger, abusing PEDs, I'm like, why am I constantly shrinking down this gyno? Why am I constantly using drugs to get rid of this gyno when all the side effects are there, right? I'm hurting my brain health, hurting my tendon and ligament health, hurting my joint health, and crushing my libido. I have way better libido on higher estrogen, as long as my prolactin's not out of whack, but higher estrogen than I do with crash estrogen. So right off the bat, I knew that AIs were super, super bad for you, and they're one of the drugs causing all the side effects, and that the visual perception of getting gyno is always going to scare me. But in my stance and my view back then, and I hold to these guns, is that I was going to just let my gyno grow. I was going to put on all the size I needed to compete at NPC Classic Physique, and when that day came, I would get the gynecomastia surgery. I would get a surgeon to cut out the gland completely so it could not come back no matter how high my estrogen is. And that was my plan, and that plan has been executed, right? I'm sitting around 250 pounds. I'm going to compete around 200 pounds, and that's a competitive stage weight on Classic Physique stage for the NPC. And it's time to get my gyno cut out. So all these years building this amount of muscle mass up to compete, I was not abusing AIs. I was keeping my estrogen. In my opinion, I like to keep my estrogen a little bit above the reference range, and Vigorous Steve agrees with me. And I'm just a big fan of Vigorous Steve, but he has a lot of the same viewpoints that I do. But yeah, I wanted to keep my estrogen as high as possible, as long as it wasn't impacting my mood, extreme water retention, and blood pressure, or wasn't impacting my libido. I was perfectly fine. I wanted my estrogen higher. Helps with building muscle in general, brain health, joint health, tendon health, collagen synthesis, libido, everything. I wanted all the benefits, and my gyno grew. So my gyno has continued to grow. The reason why I've stayed so fat, and I want to do a separate video on why I stayed so fat, but I guess this is going to be the video. But my gyno continued to grow. Because I'm so fat, you don't really notice my gyno. But if I were to shred to like a legitimate 10%, 11%, 12%, you would see the gyno. Like this one's pretty bad. This one's not nearly as bad as this one, but this one is significantly like I'd say like a full golf ball at this point. Now, I did want to go into, the protocol as far as, like Russo. I don't have I think it's going to be $6,000 to $12,000 out of pocket to get this surgery done. I don't have this money, but I have gyno. Like, how do I get rid of it? So I've shrunk my gyno with raloxifene in the past, and I obviously can't show the labels, but this may or may not be raloxifene, and you may or may not be able to Google Ryan Russo source list, type that into Google, and click the link tree, or follow me on Instagram at Russo Lifts. There's the plug, and I will hook you up with the source for raloxifene. But this is the best selective estrogen receptor modulator for combating gynecomastia, and I have done protocols in the past to shrink my gyno completely. This was probably the worst my gyno has ever gone, but my gyno has gone pretty close to where it is now, and I've shrunk it completely down into nothing, not noticeable at all. But again, comes with all the side effects that I talked about earlier, and you lead down the Joe Aesthetics path of constantly wanting to get rid of it with AIs and SERMs, which leads to much more problems in my opinion than just getting the surgery and saving the heart, like all the shit that goes wrong with abusing AIs. But yeah, I pyramided up to 60 milligrams a day of Relax. This is just my protocol, freedom of speech, what I did. You know, I pyramided up to 60 milligrams a day, and then I slowly pyramided down back to 30 milligrams a day until it went away, and then I slowly tapered off, right? You always want to not cause an estrogen rebound because you're artificially keeping it and it's trying to explode back, so you want to do a constant slow pyramid taper off down. Gyno went, you know, it was a little tiny amount of shrunk too. And yeah, I got rid of the gyno that way, so that is a way. If you're interested, you can DM me on Instagram and I'll give you a little bit more information. But that is how I used to deal with my gyno. Now I am getting the gyno surgery. I'm going to schedule it for the next 2 months before I compete. So I wanted to leave this video up here for any questions you have for the gyno surgeon, right? So any questions you have, I'm going to vlog the entire experience of getting my titties cut out, and going to put the surgeon on blast. Whatever questions you have, I will for sure relay that to the surgeon on camera. I'm sure he will be down for the free advertising. So yeah, comment what you want me to ask the surgeon. I'm gonna 100% ask him. And yeah, my question would be, you know, he's got to get the entire gland out. Even if he leaves this much of the gland in there, I could, you know, take Trestolone next 2 months and grow it all the way back, which, you know, I'm going to tell him that. Like, got to get the whole gland out. I will pay a little bit more money to make sure you get the entire gland out, and then, yeah, go from there. So, yeah, that's this video. You know, I think gyno is one of those cosmetic things that really, it's just a side effect of PD abuse. It's a side effect of estrogen conversion. But really the true underlying behind the curtain side effects of abusing AIs or utilizing raloxifene constantly, those are much worse side effects than just having a little bit of titty that in reality, not too, like bodybuilders are going to notice your gyno, but the average person, if the gyno is small, is going to be looking at your physique and not your gyno. Like, trust me, you're hyper fixated with your muscle dysmorphia on looking at that gyno way more than the average person. So I would just keep that in mind. But yeah, I really want to touch on that because I get this question an absolute fucking shit ton. Everyone who watches my Instagram story Q&As, and I'm going to do an Instagram story Q&A today, which is I answer questions live on my Instagram story. So please follow me on Not Communist YouTube. Instagram's a tiny bit better, but I'm just always trying to diversify my following away from this high-risk channel. But yeah, it's a question that pops up every single Instagram Q&A. I do around 3 Q&As a week, and every single time, you know, this is one of the reoccurring questions. And I have plugs for raloxifene on there if you do not have the thousands of dollars out of pocket, because it's not a health, there's no like health benefit. It's a cosmetic benefit to get these glands cut out. So it's basically like a plastic surgeon type deal when it comes to removing this gynecomastia. I think if you had like puberty gyno, that was like, I mean, the gyno I have currently is nothing compared to certain, you know, individuals who never abuse steroids, never done any of that bullshit, but they have horrible, like much larger gyno than I have. Like, those might be able to be covered under insurance, but because of my steroid abuse, like this is a cosmetic surgery that I just have to get because I want to compete in classic physique. I'm going to be below 8% body fat on stage at least. You know, preferably a solid 6%, high 6%, not complete 6, probably like a little bit like 6 point something in the high end percent body fat. If I am that body fat, that gyno will stick out like a sore thumb on my physique that's shredded. And it's important that I will use AIs during my contest prep to get that crazy shredded and get that water off. But I don't want my physique to be ruined visually by some gyno. You know, I'm going to cut it out before I get on stage. So hopefully you guys learned something, and please comment any questions you have down for the gynecomastia surgery. I will see you guys in my next video.